telling me a little bit about your daughter and sort of a dilemma that you've been in. Say more. I want the audience to really benefit from this awesome story.
Yeah, so I have a daughter who also has a twin, right, who's a boy, and she also has three older brothers who are very protective of her. And so, one of the things that I've heard or I understood to be true is that sometimes when girls are overprotected, they become, I guess the word might be freak or freakish or promiscuous. And so that's always kind of been a fear of mine as a father. We say that the goal is to keep off the pole. And so, I don't want to own the pole, but I also want to make sure that I'm not damaging her for the next person. And so, for me as a father, I'm just unclear because I'm looking at it, maybe from the male perspective. And I don't know if I have proper perspective, but I do know, as conservative as I am probably doing some damage between me, her, and the brothers, because she doesn't have a boyfriend. We're very, very protective. We're some big men, and I don't know if people know that or you guys can see that, but, if you could possibly give me some game about that, because that's one of those things I'm really trying to navigate in my parenting, so.
Yeah, this is a great question. Have you ever heard of the Madonna whore syndrome?
No, I have not.
Awesome. I think that is a great place for us to start. But first, I'm Tracey Knight, and I'm your codependency coach. And today, what we're going to be doing is shattering the stigma of Black women and their sexuality and how it relates to codependency. And I want to do it through the lens of the Madonna whore syndrome. So getting back to this conversation where you have a young daughter, I think she's a teenager now, and she's coming of age where she's coming into womanhood, and she is coming into her sexuality. Her body is developing, and I can even see your face where I say her body is developing, right? Her body is developing into a woman, right? And that for many men who have only seen their bundle of joy as that little baby and a little girl that they could just cherish and take care of and sit them on their lap, to see her transform into a woman can sometimes be really unsettling. So I want you to understand that I get that. The Madonna whore syndrome is basically when men, and I'm going to oversimplify this, when men see women through one of two lenses, the Madonna or a whore. The Madonna, even biblically, is considered someone who is virtuous. Mm-hmm. She is seen through the eyes of virginity, even if she's having sex, she's virtuous. So in the way that she has sex, it's, she's covered up. When she goes out, the way that she dresses is conservative, such that other men wouldn't gawk at her. So she's seen as someone men would marry. Men oftentimes talk about the girl you'll marry and the girl that you will sleep with or have sex with. That brings us to the whore piece. You even talked about being on the pole, right? Which basically means pole dancing. So in this case is the woman who you would be sexually free with, because she's sexually free in her body, in her sexuality. And so you enjoy that. You embrace that. You look for that. You celebrate that, but only in that space. That is not someone who you would marry. So the Madonna whore is like characterizing women as one or the other. Okay? Now, let's talk about some of the stigmas associated with that. So with your daughter, it is natural for her to come into her sexuality. When you box her into a place where she feels like you're judging her sexuality as something that is abnormal, something that is dirty, that is bad, then a woman can't help but to somewhere underneath begin to believe that who she is and who she's becoming is bad or not quite up to par, or it needs to be hidden. It needs to be, it's not permissible. Human sexuality is a normal part of life. You have a wife, your wife is a very voluptuous, beautiful woman. And you were attracted to her, I assume, because of some of that. And so when you send the message to your child that what her body is becoming and her desire to date a man is not acceptable, it can have a ding to her own self-esteem and self-worth, because it's almost like saying that what she's doing and who she's becoming is not normal, when it actually is normal. It is absolutely normal. Moreover, that it's dirty. And I really want to dive into this a little bit more. I want to tell a personal story around this, but also a story that's kind of mixed up with other women's narratives. And this is probably more information than people would want to know, but there are women who have oftentimes thought of their menstrual cycle as something that was very dirty and something that should not be talked about, because in our society we hid that. We didn't talk about that. That's not something that should be discussed in proper conversation. When it is because of that menstrual cycle that we all got here. It is during that time that an egg is born. But if a woman doesn't see that menstrual cycle as being something that's normal, she can begin to hate that menstrual cycle. It becomes a nuisance to her. Hello, me. Hello, me. And so that nuisance, you begin to think of yourself as, well, I need to have myself prepared for just a man, and the menstrual cycle is something that I shouldn't, it's not normal, or it's not acceptable, or it's dirty. When it's not, it is a part of who we are. So often, women are really struggling with their bodies and being able to accept all of who they are. The first man that a woman loves is her father. And if her father can't accept that about her, then why would she attract a man who could?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's deep.
And then the part about the pole, when you think about all the things that you love about the woman who is on the pole, because really what we're talking about is a woman who is free in her sexuality and in her sensuality. Why is there a double standard? Why is there a double standard for men to be fully expressed in their sexuality, but women cannot be? What is it about us that is said that women have less, sorry, that is my nap, that women, that a woman's body should only be available for a man, and her pleasure should be subordinated to his?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a good question.
Do you have a great answer from a male's perspective?
I think if I'm looking at it from the mature logical standpoint, I think this is just an assumption that's just been assumed. It's been passed down. It's almost, I guess for me, it's a situation where I was given information from a man who gave him some information, who
Yes.
gave him some information,
Yes.
which is interesting because my great-great-grandfather never told his son he loved him. So it means my great-grandfather never told my grandfather he
Right.
loved him.
Right.
And then I didn't know my daddy. So, you see that there is a situation where for a long time, things were just assumed.
Yeah.
And nobody said anything.
Yep.
I mean, at least I knew I grew up in a household where, things were dysfunctional. And we just didn't say anything. And
Yes.
this is just the way it is. And, even if it didn't make sense, right? So, for me, it was just that, you just assume this is the way that things are.
It is true that women, statistically, women struggle with codependency more than men, although men deeply struggle with codependency. But for women, a lot of times we're finding that this notion of needing to prove ourselves, to operate within the paradigm that oftentimes has been set by men in a patriarchal society that we have co-created together. And so that is the place where the codependency really starts to set up, when we're trying to make sure that our bodies, our mindset, everything about us kind of fits into that paradigm, and it never allows the woman to be fully expressed as herself. I have a client, Erica, who is 48. She's been married for over 20 years and recently got divorced. And, she grew up in a very conservative household as well, where sex was not talked about, and in fact, sexuality was rewarded with shaming. Shaming is a normal human emotion, but it is a very low vibrational human emotion. It is the distinction between guilt and shame. Guilt is I did something that goes against or violates my values or who I say I am. So the action, like I did something or I didn't do something. Shame is I am a bad person. I'm a bad person. Like I'm not worthy. That is identifying yourself as that. And so when, in this case with Erica, she actually loves her sexuality. Somehow, even through the marriage, which perhaps even led to the reason why the marriage didn't work, she really, in secret, embraces her sexuality, but she's felt like she couldn't embrace that within her community, her family, and some of the friends that she has in her inner circle. And so there's this constant toddling of putting on one mask, taking it off, and then being someone else, instead of allowing herself to be the fully expressed woman that she is. In this particular case, she would like to explore dating multiple people, but oftentimes women feel like there will be a stigma if I'm dating multiple people. That one means I need to sleep with multiple people and people will have something to say about it. But even if she did sleep with multiple people, that makes her a whore. And it doesn't. It just makes her fully in charge of her body and what it is that she feels aligned with. But this constant need to have a double standard for men and women within our culture is tearing us apart. And it's tearing away at the fabric of our self-esteem and our self-worth. And I know that you want something more for your daughter. So I just invite you, as I have invited so many others of you, to consider taking my codependency quiz, which will allow you to really kind of tune in and gauge whether or not some of the decisions that you're making are fraught with codependent habits, codependent belief systems. They affect us at home, at work, and in the bedroom. They affect how we see ourselves and our ability to access our full power. So just click the link below to access that codependency quiz and then share it out with a friend as well. If you find that codependency has really been guiding the decisions that you're making, number one, subscribe to this channel so that you can have full access to free content like this. And then consider coming into my Conquer Codependency Bootcamp, where I personally will help you, coach you through this idea of reclaiming your own sexuality, your own sense of identity, and really overcoming those belief systems that have kept you in prison for so long. You deserve to live life on your own terms. I'm Tracey Knight, and I'm your codependency coach. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being in the studio.
Thank you.
And I will see you real soon.